Hi everybody, this is Bonnie with Bonnie Bay Crochet, and today I want to show you how to make my wild Irish throw. Let me go ahead and show you some other pictures right here. This is an intermediate level design. If you've never done cables before, I recommend that you try doing some swatches or check out some of my other videos that have simpler cables. I'll have a list in the video description for you. But this features a brand new style of cabling, and I'm really excited to share that with you. Well, let me go ahead and show you what you're going to need. For this project, I'm going to be using Paint Box Yarns Simply Aran. And let me give you some stats on this. This is 100% acrylic. Each of these skeins has 184 meters or 201 yards, 100 grams of weight or 3.5 ounces. This is a medium weight or a number 4 weight yarn. Another word to describe that would be worsted or Aran weight. And I am using color number SA65. And I will have a link for this in the video description below. Also, look across the bottom of your screen. I'll tell you how many skeins of yarn that I used for this particular project. I will also be using a size I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook. I'm also recommending that you have a pair of sharp scissors and a yarn needle handy. And I'm also recommending that you have several stitch markers so that we can mark some of these cables as we go, just to use as reminders. Again, this is optional, it's not required. You can also use contrasting strands of yarn to mark your work. To begin, we're going to start with a slip knot and a starting chain of 199 chains. After completing that starting chain of 199 chains, we are going to start in the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to work a double crochet in that chain. And I am working just along the side of the chain, not in the back bump. If you want to work in the back bump, feel free to do that. We will not be working a perimeter round for this. So whatever you work on this row, this is what you're going to see when the project is finished. Okay, so now we are just simply going to work a double crochet in each chain all the way across. At the end of this row, you should have 196 stitches, and that's not including the chain 3 at the beginning. After completing row 1, you should have a total of 196 double crochets plus the chain 3 at the beginning. All right, so now we're going to turn. We're going to chain 2, and the next 7 rows will be ribbing. So the even number rows will be starting with a front post. We're going to skip the first stitch, and we're going to work a front post double crochet in the first stitch, followed by a back post double crochet, again front post, coming into the front, working our hook around the stitch, and then complete it as a normal double crochet. And then for the back post, again coming into the back, and the hook goes around the stitch. We're going to be doing a lot of these in this particular project, so I hope you enjoy front and back post double crochets. So go ahead and alternate these back and forth all the way across the row, and I'll show you how the row ends. At the end of row 2, we're going to end with a front post double crochet and a half double crochet worked into that turning chain, and the stitch count will remain the same. Okay, so now for row 3, we're going to chain 2. And in keeping with the ribbing, we're going to start the odd number rows with a back post double crochet, followed by a front post, and again a back post double crochet, and then a front post. At the end of this row, it will end with a back post double crochet and then work a half double again in the turning chain at the end of the row. After you complete row 3, we're going to repeat rows 2 and 3 2 more times. So go ahead and again finish row 3 and then work row 2 and 3 2 more times. So this is what you should have after completing the first 7 rows, which of course is all of the ribbing. Now for row number 8, we're going to begin laying the foundation for all the cables that will be worked throughout this project. It might be helpful for you to look in the video description below, and I'll have a list of some of the names of these stitches so that you can look them up. I do have these available on my YouTube channel and some of them on the Watch channel, so you can look them up and study them if they are not something that you're familiar with. Okay, so let's go ahead, and so we're going to start with row 8, and we're going to start with a chain 2, and the very first thing we're going to do is work the first 10 stitches of ribbing. So we're going to skip the first stitch here, and we're going to, at the beginning, this is really the way all of the rows are going to begin and end. They're all going to begin and end by working 10 stitches of the ribbing. Now the way you work them is going to be slightly different if you have the front side facing or the back side facing. And for the record, the row 8 is an even number row, and this is the front side facing. So with the front side facing, we're going to begin with a front post double crochet. When the back side is facing, you're going to start with a back post double crochet. Okay, and then we work again back post, followed by a front post, and we're going to do this until we've worked over 10 stitches. Now I'm going to slip a photo right here of some of the stitches we're going to be doing, just so that you have a little bit of a vision of where we are headed in this project. Okay, so now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work 1 waddle stitch. Okay, so we're going to start in that next stitch. We're going to work a single crochet, a chain 1, and a double crochet, and the 3 of these stitches work together constitute a wattle stitch. That's W-A-T-T-L-E stitch. And then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches in order to allow for that spacing for this double crochet in the wattle stitch. Okay, after we do that, we're going to lay the foundation for a wavy cable, which is very similar to the elongated cable. It's just the way the order of how you work a front cross or a back cross is just slightly different. So we're going to skip those 2 stitches again for the wattle stitch. And now for the foundation of that cable, we're going to work 3 front post double crochets, 1 in each of those next stitches, a half double worked into the top loops of the next stitch, and this is a spacer stitch, and then 3 more front post double crochets. Okay, so I'll pause so we have the foundation for that elongated wavy cable. Okay, so after that we're going to work another wattle stitch. In that next stitch, working through the top loops, we work a single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then skip 2 more stitches. After that, we're going to work 2 front post double crochets, and this is for the border for the popcorn stitch. Okay, so we're going to work 2 front post and then 1 back post double crochet. Now we're going to work a large popcorn stitch, or maybe some people will call this a bobble stitch. So I'm going to show you how I want you to work that, and we're just going to work right into the top loops of the next stitch. Yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, and do it one more time. Yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, and we're going to pull through all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 loops on the stitch and give it a chain. And that's going to be our puff stitch. The next thing we're going to do is another back post, double crochet, and then 2 more front post, double crochets. Let's stop and take a look. Okay, so we have 2 front post, a back post, the puff stitch, back post, and 2 front post double crochets. Okay, so after we finish working the bobble section, we're going to work 2 waddle stitches with that single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet, and we're going to do that again. Skip 2 stitches and another waddle stitch, single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. Skip 2 stitches. Now we're going to work the foundation for that, the largest of the cables in this project. So we're going to work 3 front post double crochets and a half double worked into that next stitch. We're going to do this 2 more times. So 3 front post double crochets and then a half double. And let's do that again. 3 front post double crochets and then a half double. Let's pause a minute. So we have 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, and then we have just 3 more front post double crochets. We don't work the half double after this one because on the other side we're going to work 2 more waddle stitches starting in that next stitch, worked again in the top loops. I am trying to distinguish as much as possible because this is different than working a post stitch, and I just want to be very clear about that. So that's 1 waddle stitch, skip 2 stitches, and then another waddle stitch, which is that single crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Okay, so let's stop and take a look at that for just a second. So now we're going to work another set of the bobble section. So we're going to skip 2 stitches again for that waddle stitch, and then we're going to work 2 front post, 1 back post, and these back posts surrounding the bobble stitch are going to help to accentuate the bobble. Okay, so in the next stitch, which again worked into the top loop, we're going to work another bobble, and we're going to do this 4 times with the wrap the hook, insert, pull up a loop. That's 1. Wrap, insert, pull up. That's 2. That's 3. And that's 4. And you want to make sure that the loops are about at a half double crochet height. All right, pull through all 9 loops and give it a chain. Now we're going to work a back post double crochet and then 2 front post double crochets, just like that. After that, we're going to work 1 waddle stitch with that single crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. And let me just speak a little bit about these waddle stitches, because when to use 1, when to use 2. When you have the large cable, which is going to have the triple cross and all that stuff going on in it, we want 2 waddle stitches framing these large cables. And everywhere else, for the most part, you're just going to have one wattle stitch in between these different cables. Okay, so that's the main distinction. I don't know if that's going to help or just confuse you at this point, but I just wanted to go ahead and state that clearly in case you haven't seen that pattern in the photographs of the design yet. Okay, after that we're going to work the foundation. First, skip 2 stitches for that wattle stitch, and then we're working the foundation for the elongated wavy cable. So we're going to work 3 front post double crochets, a half double in that next stitch and worked into the top, and 3 more front post double crochets, well, let's go ahead and get that stitch to follow suit. All right, after that we are going to frame the wavy cable with another popcorn, but not until we work a wattle stitch. So in the next stitch we work a wattle stitch, single crochet, chain 1 and a double crochet, skip 2 stitches, and now we're going to work the bobble section again, which is 2 front post double crochets, 1 back post double crochet, and then we work the bobble, which again is 4 repeats of this. Wrap, insert, pull up a loop. It's 2, 3, 4, yarn over, pull through all 9 loops on the hook and give it a chain at the top, and then again back post double crochet followed by 2 front post double crochets. Okay, so let's just look at the section with the popcorn, the section for the foundation for the wavy elongated cable, and then another section for the popcorn. Okay, so now we're ready to work 2 wattle stitches so that we can prepare for another large cable, again with that triple cable. Single crochet, chain 1 double, which is that wattle stitch, skip 2, and let's do that again. Skip 2, and then now the foundation for that triple cable. 3 front post double crochets, and then a half double. We're going to do that a couple more times. 3 front post double crochets, and then a half double, and 3 more front post double crochets, and then a half double. And do pause every now and then just to take a look at your work to see where you are. It's 1, 2, 3 sets, and then we're just going to work 3 more front post double crochets only. Now it's time for 2 more wattle stitches. Remember that frame, these large cables. Single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, skip 2 stitches, and another wattle stitch, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, skip 2 stitches. And now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the set with the bobble, the elongated wavy, and then the bobble. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, skip 2 stitches for that wattle stitch, and 2 front post double crochets, followed by a back post double crochet, and then the bobble worked into the top loop, We wrap the hook, pull up a loop. We do that 4 times. And we should have 9 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through all 9 loops and give it a chain. Let me pause right now and just say that if you find that my crocheting speed is too fast, I first of all apologize for that, but I do have a solution. Whether you're watching this on my watch.bonniebaycrochet.com subscriber-based channel or on my YouTube channel, you can look across the bottom of the screen. You're going to have to pause the video, but there'll be a little gear-shaped item down here, and you can click on that, and that will bring up a playback speed. And you can select a variety of slower playback speeds that will help. Also, if you're watching from a phone, up in the upper right hand corner, there are 3 vertical dots. You click on that, that will do the same thing. Again, the video, I believe, needs to be paused in order for you to make those adjustments. But you can make it faster if you want to see it really fast. You know, you can do all sorts of things, but I just wanted to be sure that you understood that, so that you're not held back by a speed that doesn't suit your learning style. Okay, so back to the popcorn. We've worked 2 front posts, 1 back post, the bobble. Now we work a back post, double crochet, followed by 2 front posts, double crochets. After that, we work another wattle stitch. So after completing the wattle stitch, we're going to skip 2 stitches again for that wattle stitch, and then we're going to work the foundation for that elongated wavy cable with 3 front post double crochets, a half double worked into the top of that next stitch, and then 3 more front post double crochets. Okay, and then again we're going to work a wattle stitch in that next stitch. Skip the next 2 stitches again for the wattle stitch, and then we're going to work the foundation for the bobble again. So 2 front post double crochets, followed by a back post double crochet, and then we're going to work that bobble worked into the top loop. We're going to wrap the hook again, insert, pull up a loop, and we're going to do that 4 times total. Do you have 9 loops on the hook? Pull through all the loops and give it a chain. In the next stitch, we're going to work a back post double crochet, followed by 2 front post double crochets. So we have another section with the bobbles, the cable, and the bobbles, and now it's time to again work 2 wattle stitches that are going to be framing the large triple or cable. Skip 2, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and again skip 2 stitches, and then the foundation for that large triple cable, where we work 3 front post double crochets, a half double in that next stitch, 3 more front post double crochets, a half double in the top of that next stitch, and 3 more front post double crochets, and a half double. So that's 3 sets. And then the last set just has 3 front post double crochets. Oh, let's try that one. Oh, there we go. Got it through. Okay, and then on the other side, we're going to work 2 wattle stitches, skip 2, so now following those 2 wattle stitches, we're going to finish out by skipping the next 2 stitches again for that wattle stitch. And we're going to front post double crochet in the next 2. This is for the bobble section. Then a back post double crochet, and then the bobble. Wrap the hook, insert, pull up a loop, and do that 4 times total. So we have 9 loops on that hook. Yarn over, pull through all 9 loops, and give it a chain. And then a back post double crochet, and then 2 front post double crochets to frame it up beautifully. And then we're going to work another wattle stitch, again just a single wattle stitch, skip 2 stitches, and then this is going to be the last cable foundation. We work 3 front post double crochets, half double in that half double, and then 3 more front post double crochets. I know this is a very long row, this is very tedious, but once you establish the visual nature of this throw, it will, trust me, it will get easier as you go. Okay, so now for the final test to see if we have the right number of stitches, we work a single crochet, chain 1, double, that wattle stitch combo. That next stitch, skip the next 2 stitches. Now starting with a back post double crochet, we're going to work the rest in the ribbing stitch. So back post, front post, and this is going to be over the last 10 stitches. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I just must say, as a designer, I love it when the math works out. I hope this is working out for you as well. Half double in that turning chain. So let's take a look. And this is, for the most part, totally symmetrical. So let's start from the very beginning of the row, and we're just going to identify these quickly. We have the ribbing, 1 wattle stitch, foundation for the elongated wavy cable, a wattle stitch, the foundation for the popcorn, again trimmed with these columns that are just going to elongate and frame this, 2 wattle stitches, foundation 4 columns for the large triple cable, and then 2 more framing again this large cable. And then we have this repeating now, the puff stitch or bobble, 1 wattle stitch, foundation for the wavy elongated cable, wattle stitch, and again the bobble set, and then again 2 wattle stitches, the large triple cable foundation, 2 wattle stitches, the bobble set again. I'm going to call this different things, but I mean the same thing, bobble, puff stitch, whatever you want to call this, but with the, I'm going to just try to stick to bobble. 1 wattle stitch, the foundation for the elongated cable, wattle stitch, the bobble set again, 2 wattle stitches, the large cable, triple cable foundation, 2 wattle stitches, the bobble, 1 wattle stitch, and the elongated wavy cable, wattle stitch, and then followed by the 10 rib stitches starting with a back post. Make sure you don't forget that back post. It doesn't stick out in the same way, but it is there, and we're going to talk a lot about that as we go on. And then we end with a half double in the turning chain. So that is your row 8, which is the foundation for all of these stitches. Now we're going to turn, and if you've ever worked any of my throws before, I think by looking at the stitches you'll know what to do. If you're on a row that's not crossing anything, I think this will be pretty intuitive for you. We're going to chain 2, and starting with a back post double crochet, we're going to work those alternating back post and front post double crochets over those first 10 stitches. So go ahead and work those. Now after completing those 10 ribbed stitches, we're going to work a wattle stitch. Now for the wattle stitches from this point on, you're not going to have to skip stitches and everything. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be working this only in that chain 1 space. There's a hole in the wattle stitch created with that chain 1 space, and that's where we're going to work the entire wattle stitch, just there. Single crochet, chain 1, double crochet. When you come to the back side of the wavy cable, we're just going to work 3 back post double crochets, followed by a half double, and then 3 more back post double crochets. And that's the way all of the elongated cables will be worked when the back side is facing after a row. Well, except for when you're crossing the cables. We'll get to those differences later. We come to another wattle stitch. We work a single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. And then now to the back side of the bobble section, we're going to work 2 back post double crochets. We're just going to maintain those, and then a front post double crochet. We're going to work a half double in the top of that bobble, just a half double, and that's it. And then we're not going to work anything in this other stitch. Let's talk about that a second. There is a loop here, and then there's another loop here. We're not going to do anything with this loop. We're just counting this as 1 stitch, so just working 1 half double in the top is all that you will need to do. The stitch count will stay constant throughout. And then we work a front post double crochet and 2 back post double crochets. All right, and then so that's going to, we go on to 2 wattle stitches, so working only in that chain 1 space, single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then we skip to the next chain 1 space, work another wattle stitch in those chain 1 spaces, and these will be worked in this way throughout. Now we get to the back side of the large cable, and we're going to work 3 back post double crochets. This is where we worked the front post double crochets earlier. Half double, that next half double, 3 more back post double crochets, half double and the next half double, etc. Another half double, and then we finish this out with 3 more back post double crochets. It's a lot easier once you establish where these are. So that's why row 8, the previous row, is just very fundamental, very, very important. Okay, so then wattle stitch in each of the next 2 wattle stitches. Now that will repeat across, and I will do a couple of these again, working on the back side of the bobble. We're going to work 2 back post double crochets, 1 front post double crochet, and then in the bobble again, there are 2 loops, but we're just going to work in the one that's right above the bobble, and we're going to work a half double crochet there. We're going to skip this little loop. Again, this counts as only 1 stitch with the bobble. Front post double crochet followed by 2 back post double crochets. So hopefully you're seeing the pattern here. You come to a wattle stitch, we work the wattle stitch, and again back post double crochets over the next 3 stitch. This is the elongated wavy cable. Half double in the next half double, and then 2 more, actually 3 more back post double crochets. And again that wattle stitch, again working in the chain 1 space only. I know I'm repeating myself, but after all, this is instructive, so I just wanted to be clear as possible. Okay, and again working with that bobble from the back side. And the bobble stitch is basically going to be a 2-row repeat, and this is row 2 of the bobble stitch. And working in the top, we just work that half double crochet whenever the back side is facing. We work the bobble when the front side is facing. And then a front post double crochet, and then 2 back post double crochets. And again with the wattle stitches, you should know what to do with those. Working only in the chain 1 spaces. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to talk you through the rest of this because it's just going to be very, very redundant. So now we are facing the back side of that large cable. We're going to work 3 back post, half double, 3 back post, half double, 3 back post, half double, 3 back post, wattle stitch, again working behind the bobble, 2 back posts double crochets, 1 front post, half double in the top of the bobble, front post, 2 back post, and then a wattle stitch working over the cable, 3 back post double crochets, half double, 3 back post double crochets, 1 wattle stitch, and then again working the bobble, 2 back post, 1 front post, half double in the top of the bobble, front post, 2 back post, wattle stitch, and then another large cable, 3 back post, 1 half double, 3 back post, half double, 3 back post, half double, 3 back post double crochets, wattle stitch, and then again the bobble, 2 back post, 1 front post, half double, front post, 2 back post, wattle stitch, and then the cable, 3 back post, half double, 3 back post, 1 wattle stitch, and then we start with a front post double crochet over those last front post, back post, front post, back post over the last 10 stitches, and then a half double in the turning chain. So go ahead and finish row number 9. This is what you should have after completing 9 rows. And you can see that these are becoming a little more defined for us. We can see the columns of the large cables better, and hopefully this popcorn is going to stand out a little bit more after we do another popcorn this row. And you see the columns for the elongated cables. Okay, so since these have already been established, what I'm going to do is I am going to work the cables a couple times. I'm not going to work every stitch every row because Unless you need to to be cured of insomnia, I don't know that that's going to really help. In this way, you can always back up and look at the various stitches. But again, I'm going to be giving detailed instruction where it is most needed on these. Now for row 10, that's the row we're beginning, we are going to cross the columns. We're going to cross the cables here for the elongated wavy cable. And we're also going to cross just the 2 center columns in the middle of this large triple cable. And that is really the main difference of this row. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, this is the row 10 with front side facing. So we will do those first 10 stitches with a chain 2 and starting with a front post. So go ahead and work the front post, back post, front post, back post, ribbing over those first 10 stitches. After those 10 ribbed stitches, don't forget the back post, the 10th stitch. Again, it's not visible from the other side, but you should be able to feel it with the nerve endings in your fingers. Make sure you don't short yourself a stitch there. Working in that wattle stitch again in that chain 1 space, work the single crochet, chain 1, double crochet. And so now we're going to cross our first cable of this project. We're going to skip the next 3 stitches, half double in that half double crochet. After that half double, we're going to work front post trebles in each of these 3 stitches. So make sure you prepare your hook for a treble. Front post treble crochet, that's 1, 2, and 3. Now working in front of those last 4 stitches, those 3 trebles and that half double crochet, we're going to work front post trebles here, here, and here. It feels like a long way to come with your hook, but it is the correct thing to do for this particular crossing of the cables. All right, so that first cable has been crossed. Go right into the wattle stitch of that next wattle stitch into that chain 1 space. So let's just take a look. So that first cable has been crossed. All right, so now we continue on with our 2-row repeat of the bobble section. Okay, 2 front post double crochets, 1 back post double crochet, and now we're going to work a bobble. Wrap the hook, insert, pull up a loop. We're going to do that 4 times. We have 9 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 9 loops, and give it a chain. And then we're going to work a back post double crochet, followed by 2 front post. Let's pause and take a look at that. All right, so now let's continue on. 2 more wattle stitches. Again, worked only in the chain 1 space. Now we come to the large cable, and this is the way we're going to handle this. We're just going to continue the columns on the outside. So we're just going to continue with front post double crochets when the front side is facing, back post double crochets when the back side is facing us. Half double in that next half double. Okay. And then we're going to cross the center 2 columns in the same way. Skip the next 3 stitches, half double, that next half double, front post treble in the next 3 stitches, make sure we get it in the right place. Working in front of those 4 stitches, we're going to front post treble in each of those 3 stitches that we skipped. And again, it does feel like you're coming a long ways. It's going to be even more so when we cross this after having a triple cable. Okay. And so half double in that next stitch, and then 3 front post double crochets to frame that out. And so this is how each of these sections is worked as we work across. And so the remainder of the row is just doing what we did here over the other. So I'll work a little bit more of this with you so you don't just have one pass at it. Okay, so wattle stitch in each of those 2 wattle stitches that are framing the larger cable. And now we work the bobble again. 2 front post double crochets, a back post double crochet, and then we're going to work a bobble, wrap the hook, insert, and pull up a loop, and do that 4 times. Just like that, and give it a chain. And back post double crochet, followed by 2 front posts double crochets. Okay, and again a wattle stitch, and let me show you how to cross this cable one more time, and then I'm going to give you verbal just quick instructions for the rest of this because it is repeating itself. Skip the next 3 stitches, half double, and that next half double, front post trebles in the next 3 stitches as we cross this cable, and just like that, working in front of those last 4 stitches, we're going to front post treble here, here, and then here. One, 2, and 3. And then wattle stitch in that next stitch. So let's go ahead and talk about the rest of this. So the rest of this project, we're going to, again, we work the same with the bobble, 2 front post, a back post, a bobble, a back post, 2 front post, wattle stitch, wattle stitch. We're going to work 3 front post double crochets, a half double. We're going to cross these 2 columns just like we did earlier with a half double, 3 front post trebles, and then working in front of those 4 stitches we do 3 front post trebles here, half double, 3 front post double crochets, wattle stitch, and again with the bobble, 2 front post, a back post, a bobble, a back post, 2 front post, half double, and then we cross this cable again. Skip these 3 stitches, half double, front post trebles, working in front of those 4 stitches, front post trebles in these 3 stitches, and etc. So, and again, it's just is repeating again the wattle stitches where the wattle stitches go, and you have the bobbles again, another large cable where you work 3 front post doubles, half double, cross these 2 columns as explained, half double, 3 front post doubles, 2 wattles, again the bobble stitch, and a wattle stitch, cross these 2 cables, a wattle stitch, and working starting from the back post, work those 10 ribbing stitches, back post, front post, over those 10, and then a half double in the turning chain. So go ahead and finish row 10. This is what you should have after completing 10 rows. We see the first elongated cable crossed in the center of the large triple cable. It begins to be crossed, another crossing here, Again, the middle of the triple cable. Another, the wavy cable is crossed. Again, these cables will look more distinguished as we go through more rows. Another large cable, and this one is crossed. Now, one thing I could have said, which I neglected to say, is if you get confused when crossing these cables, especially where you have 4 columns, you could easily just put a stitch marker on that second column as a reminder. And you can certainly do that, and then just move them as the rows progress. All right, so let's go on to row number 11, which is going to start with the chain 2 and those 10 ribbed stitches. Again, skipping that first stitch. I haven't said that a lot in the video, but we always omit or do not use that first stitch, which is kind of a border stitch. We start with a back post when the back side is facing us, and go ahead and work those 10 stitches, front and back post stitches. After that, we're going to work a wattle stitch. You should be getting very familiar with these now. Now, this is what's a little bit different when we're working off the back side of these cables facing us after we've crossed the cable. We're going to work 3 back post double crochets as they appear, the same order in which they appear here. 1, 2, 3. Now, in between that stitch and the next stitch, this is where the cables cross. So we're going to work a half double in between those stitches. And just to let you know, the stitch count is not going to change. We're skipping a half double crochet here that we used in the previous row, so the stitch count does remain constant. After that, we do 3 more back post double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then we go on to that next wattle stitch. There we go. And then we're going to work over the bobble. We're going to work 2 back post double crochets. We're going to work a front post double crochet. We're going to work a half double worked into the top of the bobble, followed by a front post and 2 back post double crochets. Okay. And you can see these bobbles are showing on both sides of the project. After that, we do the 2 wattle stitches. This is again to frame the larger cable. And now, working on the back side of this triple cable, we're going to work 3 back post double crochets, a half double in that next half double, and then now we're going to be working over the cross cable, and we're going to do the same that we did with that wavy cable. 3 back post double crochets, half double worked in between that last stitch and the next stitch, and then 3 more back post double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. And then half double in this next half double. This is the one that's going to be, it's actually the second half double because we're skipping this one as we did on that last stitch. So you don't really even see this one, but we're skipping that and then working in the one that is prominent here right next to these 3 other post stitches. So we work 3 more back post double crochets, and then again 2 waddle stitches, and then everything is going to repeat. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So as we continue on, we will do another the bobble stitch with 2 back posts, a front post, a half double, front post, 2 back posts, waddle stitch, and then we're going to work back post double crochets, half double in between that last and next stitch, and 3 more back post doubles, waddle stitch, and then over the bobble again, 2 back post, front post, half double, front post, 2 back post doubles, waddle stitch, and then again over the back of the large triple cable, 3 back post, half double, 3 back post, half double in between that last stitch and next stitch, the crossing where the cables were crossed, 3 back post, half double, 3 back post, etc. So go ahead and work those all the way across. When you get to the end, again, waddle stitch, and beginning with a front post double crochet, front post, back post, front post, back post over those last 10 stitches, and then a half double in the turning chain. This is what you should have after completing 11 rows. I'm just going to show you the major cables, but one thing you may want to do is go ahead and verify visually that all of your cable sections look the same, that your bobble sections look the same, that nothing is missing. So definitely take the time to visually check so that you don't have to go back and rip other rows out. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to work starting with a front post double crochet, then a back post. Work those 10 stitches on the ribbing, and then work the waddle stitch, and then I will show you how to work the cable section. Okay, so now that we get to the cable, this is pretty straightforward. It's actually the same as what we did on row number 8. We're going to work 3 front post double crochets, a half double worked into the top loops of that half double, and 3 more front post double crochets. Of course, we have our waddle stitches here, and I'm going to go ahead and work this bobble section with you again, even though it's just another repeat of row 1 of the bobble stitch, because again we have row 1, row 2, row 1, row 2. As far as the repeat patterns, this is probably the easiest of the cables to work. So 2 front post doubles, a back post double crochet, and then we work the bobble worked into those top loops again. We have 9 loops on that hook. Pull through, yarn over, give it a chain, and then a back post double crochet followed by 2 front post doubles. And let's just go ahead and talk about the rest because it is so straightforward. Waddle stitch, 3 front post doubles, half double, 3 front post doubles, half double, 3 front post, half double, 3 front post. So it is essentially a repeat of row 8, except that you are working the waddle stitches into the chain 1 spaces instead of having to worry about skip stitches on that foundation row. This is how the cable should look after completing 12 rows. So just take a good look at these. And this is the large cable. All right, so let's go on to row 13. And I'll go ahead and give you some instructions. This is going to be another easy row, I believe. So we're going to do a chain 2, and we're going to start with the back post, front post, back post, front post over those first 10 stitches, and then work a waddle stitch. Then we're going to work 3 back post, a half double, 3 back post over the cables, the the elongated wavy cable, wattle stitch in the wattle stitches, and for the bobble section, 2 back post, front post, half double, front post, 2 back post, just like we've been doing. Again, this is a 2-row repeat that you should probably be getting that without an issue right now. Wattle stitch, and then over the large cable, we're just simply going to do 3 back post, half double, 3 back post, half double, 3 back post, half double, 3 back post. Okay, there's going to be a lot of rows like this where we just either work front post or back post over these cables. And so rather than spending a lot of time on that, I'm going to really focus in on the stitches that are different, or the times when these cables are crossed where there's something a little different that we do. Again, wattle stitch, and then again you're repeating all over again. And just again make sure that you're working back post double crochets and then half doubles back post over those other cables. So go ahead and work row 13, and then I'll show you the row after that. This is how your cable should look after 13 rows. There's the wavy cable, and this is the triple cable, and these are going to start looking different after this row. Okay, so to start row 14, go ahead and do the chain 2. Start with the front post, back post, front post, back post over those first 10 rows and work that wattle stitch, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to cross our wavy cable. Okay, so what makes this cable different from the regular elongated cable is the way we are going to cross. Now, the crosses or the crossing of the cables that we have worked before in this project have all been front crosses, which means we work the second set of stitches in front of the first set of stitches, so we're crossing them in front. But we're going to work what we call a back cross with this cable, and let me show you how we're going to do that. We're going to skip 3 stitches, half double in the next stitch, and then front post treble in the next 3 stitches, which is all the same that we did in the crossing of the cables previously in several rows below. So instead of working in front of these 4 stitches as we cross the cables, we're going to work behind these 4 stitches. So we're going to wrap our hook for that front post treble. We're going to come into the opening right here. Let me show you from both sides. It's just that big opening, and we're going to use the nerve endings in our thumb and our tall man finger, and we're going to locate which one is going to help guide our hook. So we're going to use this first stitch, and if you want to bring this fabric down, you can see we're going to work a front post treble there, and then we come into that same opening again, locate the second stitch, which is right here, and work another front post treble, and come in one more time, and there is the third stitch, and we're going to work that third front post treble, and then after that we're going to work our next wattle stitch. Let's take a pause and look at how this stitch is going to look. So this column of stitches is always going to be on the surface. So it's going to go back and forth, back and forth. It's not going to cross over. Well, it's crossing, but it's staying on the surface, okay? Almost like a snake. So this wavy cable is going to just zigzag back and forth like that throughout, as well as all the other ones are. Now, the cable in the middle here is going to be crossed with a front cross, and it's going to give it a different look, and I will share that to you in just a second. But let's go ahead and just for a quick review, I'll go through these other stitches with you. 2 front post double crochets. I was going to say trebles, but those are doubles. 1 back post. Then it's time for another bobble with wrap the hook, insert, pull up a loop. We do that 4 times total. Just like that. Give it a chain, and then back post double crochet. Don't forget that, because that will change the whole look of this. And then 2 front post double crochets, and then we have our 2 wattle stitches. And now we've come to the large cable, or the triple cable. So we're going to work front post double crochets over these, half double and that half double, and then now we're going to cross these, skip the next 3 stitches, half double worked into the half double, 3 front post trebles. Again, same way we cross all the cables. It's just after we finish these 4 stitches is what we do afterwards. So the other stitch, or the other cable, the wavy cable, was made by coming in from the back. This we're just going to continue to cross in the front. So working in front of those last 4 stitches, we're going to front post treble here, here, and here, which I think you'll find this is the easier of the 2, whether the front cross or the back cross. But it's just going to give the throw a different texture and just a little more interesting design, I think, to look at. Half double in that next half double, and then 3 more front post double crochets. Okay, let's pause and take a look at that. So you can see how these cables are going different directions. This one's going to be going back and forth like this, where this one is going to be twisted every time it comes to the part where the cable is crossed. Okay, so that is basically the way these cables are going to be crossed in this row. So let's just talk through this a little bit more. Now, if it would be helpful to you to remember to do it differently, what you can do is put a stitch marker in front of those stitches. I'll just add it right here in the wattle stitch, just to be a reminder that something different is going to happen here. Again, this is where you do the back cross, okay? And so I'm going to put another stitch marker. I'm not going to put one here because we're going to use a front cross on this, because this is the larger cable. But I can go ahead and put a stitch marker in this one, just to remind me that I'm going to do a back cross, because sometimes I can get into the get her done mode and not pay attention to what I'm doing and cross it in the wrong way. The stitch marker is going to remind me. This is going to be crossed in the regular way with the front cross, so that's not going to be a problem. This one could potentially be a problem at the end. So I'm going to put just a little reminder stitch marker to work a back cross there. So, and then at the end of this row, we do the back post, front back post, front post, back post, front post over those last 10 stitches, and then a half double in the turning chain. So go ahead and complete row 14. This is how the cable should look after 14 rows. And I've gone ahead and poked these stitch markers towards the front. Honestly, I may just leave it there for a while, because even when I cross the next cables, it's just going to be a sign for me that this is a little bit different than what we're doing over here. Now, sometimes they will be crossing in the same direction as this cable, but anyway, sometimes they won't be. So it's just a reminder. All right, so this is what the various sections should look like. And again, I would go through at this point and make sure that, like the ones with the stitch markers, are doing the surface back cross thing there. just to make sure everything is all ready to go before we go further. And that looks good, and I'm going to go ahead and add a stitch marker right here. It's not going to hurt just to have that as a reminder. All right, so row 15 is going to start with a chain 2 and with a back post double crochet followed by a front post double crochet over those first 10 stitches, and then the wattle stitch. So go ahead and work that part, and I will show you how you work after the cables have been crossed, just to give you another review on that. So after completing those 10 stitches and that wattle stitch, I'm going to work the back post double crochets over this cable. This is after the cable has been crossed the previous row. So we work 3 back post double crochets, and now we work a half double in between that last stitch and the next stitch. This is where the cables were crossed, and then 3 more back post double crochets over the other half of this cable. It'd be very easy to skip over these if you're not careful, so do be sure that you work all 7 of those stitches of that elongated wavy cable, and then single crochet in that chain 1 space of that wattle stitch, and then we're going to again 2 back post over this bobble stitch section, and then a front post double crochet, half double in the top of that bobble, and then a front post double, and then 2 back post double crochets. Okay, so let's talk about the rest of this. We're going to work a wattle stitch here and here, and then when working over this large triple cable, we're going to work 3 back post double crochets, half double, and then again 3 back post doubles, a half double in between that last stitch and next stitch, which is the center of the cable, and then 3 more back post double crochets, skip this half double in that next half double, and then 3 more back post double crochets, wattle stitch, and then again we're repeating what we've already done. So go ahead and work row 15. This is what you should have after completing 15 rows. Now let's just talk through row 16 and row 17, because they are going to be, I think, fairly easy repeat rows for you. We're just going to continue on with the 10 stitches on the ribbing and the wattle stitches. For the wavy cables, we're just going to work 3 front post double crochet, half double and a half double, and 3 front post double crochets. This 2 stitch repeat will continue as we've been working it. Make sure you work a bobble in this section here, and when you get to the large cable, we're just going to work front post double crochets, and then half doubles into half doubles, front post doubles, half double, front post, half double, front post. And for row 17, this will have the back side facing, but let me just explain. We are only going to be working in pattern stitch, as we have established already, with the wattle stitches and the ribbing and the bobble section. We're going to work back post double crochets over the post stitches and those half doubles in between. Again, back post double crochets and the half doubles in between. So go ahead and work rows 16 and 17, and then after that we will show you how to cross the cables on row 18. This is what your cable should look like after completing 17 rows. So now for row 18, it's going to be time to cross these cables once again. So just to kind of speed this up a little bit, the 2-row repeat on all the bobble sections will remain the same, as well as the wattle stitches and the way these rows start with starting with the chain 2, front post, back post over those 10 stitches, and of course ending in the same way that it has been. So when we get to the wavy cable, we're going to cross this cable with a front cross. This is the easier way to cross the cables when we work those last stitches in front, and I will show this to you again so that you can see that. And when we get to the large triple cable, we are again just crossing these 2 columns, and it's going to also be a front cross. So this should be a pretty straightforward row. So let's go ahead and work row 18. So beginning row 18, I've worked those first 10 stitches and the wattle stitch. Now we're going to work a front cross on this first cable. And again, and you'll do the same with all the wavy cables. We're going to skip those first 3 stitches, half double in that next half double, front post treble in the next 3 stitches, and so now working in front of those last 4 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 3 stitches that we just skipped. And let's go ahead and work the wattle stitch just so that this will be anchored a bit so we can take a look at this cable. So let's just talk about this one cable for just a bit. This in the pattern will is going to continue throughout. It is an 8-row repeat, starting where you have the front cross here, and then you have the rows that follow that, and then you have a back cross with the rows that follow that. So this will just continue in this 8-stitch repeat throughout the project, throughout the design. Okay, and as I've mentioned before, this bobble section is a 2-row repeat. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, the danger with this one is forgetting that there are back posts when you have the front side facing. So you do want to be diligent to work all of the stitches. There are 7 stitches in this section or this particular motif. And this is the back post that I'm talking to you about. Make sure we don't forget that when the front side is facing. And then the 2 front posts, double crochets. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to talk the rest of the way through. This again will be crossed in the same way that I just showed you over here. It's going to be another front cross, and these columns just continue with the front post double crochets, and of course you're going to work the half doubles in between. So go ahead and complete row 18. This is what you should have after completing 18 rows. Do take the time to make sure that the elongated wavy cable is indeed a wavy cable and not crossing like the large triple cable here. So it's, believe me, it's time well spent. I'll go ahead and do that with you. Okay, so this one is a wavy cable, and this is the twisted triple cable, another wavy cable, and that looks right. And that looks right. Is it really that big a deal to stop and check? It depends on how much time you really want to spend reworking your pattern in case you make a mistake. So let's go ahead and let's talk through row 19 because you've done everything in this row already. Again, we're going to start with the chain 2, back post double crochet, front post, back post double, front post, etc. over those 10 stitches, wattle stitch. And this is where we work those back post double crochets, 3 back post double crochets, and then a half double in between that last stitch and the next stitch where the cable was crossed, and then 3 back post doubles here, and then we work the wattle stitch. And you know what to do with these bobbles. You've worked them many times already. 2 wattle stitches, and the main thing to look out here, 3 back post, half double, and again you have the crossed cable, which means you work 3 back post, a half double, and 3 back post, and then skipping this half double. I may or may not mention that every single time, but when you go to this half double crochet, it's the one that's in between the columns and the cable here, and then 3 back post double crochets, and that is the way you work on these cables all the way across. So go ahead and finish row 19. This is what you should have after completing 19 rows. And again, just make sure that your cables and everything look good or are turning in the proper direction. Okay, now I'm going to give a 2-row assignment. So for rows 20 and 21, we are basically going to continue working in the pattern stitch that we've been working, and I'll review that with you. Again, the ribbing, start with the chain 2, and then start with the front post with row 20, and with row 21 with the back side facing, you're going to start with a back post. The wattle stitches continue as usual, and when you work over the elongated wavy cable, you're just going to work front post double crochets in those first 3 stitches, half double, front post doubles. The bobble stitch just continues in the same way that we've been doing it for the last 19 rows, or actually it's fewer than that, but you know, at least 10 rows. And we're going to be working the bobble again. When we get to the large cable, again, we're just going to be working front post double crochets, half double, front post, etc. over that. And that pretty much, it covers all the 3 different sets of motifs in this. So go ahead and work rows 20, that's with the front side facing, and then row 21. And the main difference with row 21 is you're going to be working back post double crochets over those post stitches for the cables. Okay, so go ahead and work rows 20 and 21. This is what you should have after completing 21 rows. Now I'm going to talk you through a little bit what we're going to do, and then I'm going to demonstrate some of these cables, particularly the crossing of the elongated cable and the triple cable here, and you'll understand why I'm calling it a triple cable. Okay, so for this we are going to use the back cross way of crossing the stitches. That's where we work half double, 3 front post trebles, then working behind those stitches we come around and work front post trebles in the 3 stitches that we skip. All right, now for this cable it's a little different, and I'm going to go through this step by step once we get to that point. So what I want you to do is go ahead and work over those the chain 2 and those first 10 ribbed stitches and the wattle stitch, and I will show you how to cross this cable, and then I will also show you how to cross the triple cable. So now that I've worked over those initial stitches at the beginning of the row, we're going to cross this elongated wavy cable with a back cross. We skip those next 3 stitches, half double in that next half double crochet, and then we're going to front post treble in the next 3 stitches. Now this is where this is a little bit different than what we've been doing. Working behind these 4 stitches, we're going to front post treble here, here, and here. And as you recall, as a review here, we come in to the opening behind right here, which is rather large. We're going to use our nerve endings in our tall man and our thumb, and we're going to select each of these stitches one by one. This just makes it a lot easier. And we come in again into that back hole, and we select the second stitch right here, and we complete that treble, and the third stitch is right here. Locate that with our fingers, and there we go. This is how you work behind those stitches. I know it's a little awkward at first, but once you've done it a few times and you get used to the process, it really does become, dare I even say, a bit natural. So let's go ahead and work our wattle stitch, and I'm going to work over this bobble section and the wattle stitches, and then I'll show you how to cross the large cable. Okay, now we come to the large, what I'm calling the triple cable. So what we're going to do for this, instead of using half double crochets in the half doubles, because this cable is going to be stretched quite a bit, we're going to actually use double crochets. But again, just for this large crossing, and I think once I work this, you'll understand why. So to begin, we're going to skip the next 3 stitches. We're going to work a double crochet instead of a half double, just a slightly taller stitch. Skip the next 3 stitches, and we're going to work another double crochet worked into that half double crochet. So this is what you should have at first. And I know it looks really strange, but just hang with me a bit. Now we're going to work 3 front post trebles in each of the next 3 stitches. And another double crochet worked into the top of that half double, and 3 more front post treble crochets. Okay, so now this is where it gets interesting. We've prepared our hook for a treble crochet. We're going to come all the way over here, and this is where we're going to get that triple twist look. Come all the way over here, and we're going to front post treble in each of those 3 stitches. Okay, so do you see where we had that first double crochet? Go ahead and work another double crochet there. And this is going to be hidden within the cabling, so it's not going to be seen again. And then front post treble in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. This is a big, big crossing. And then when we go over here to the wattle stitch, go ahead and work that wattle stitch. And let's take a pause and look at what we've just done. So this is what we have. So we actually have 1, 2, 3 cables, and then they are going to cross. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and work my way through these other cables, the bobble and the other cable with the actually a back cross here and the bobble here. And then I'm going to show this to you one more time just so that you have another look at it. Now before I demonstrate how to cross this triple cable again, I'm going to put a stitch marker in that first half double crochet just like this, and that's going to be a reminder to show us where we're going to put that second double crochet when we cross this again. All right, so let me go ahead and show you how to do this. Once again, we're going to skip 3 stitches, and remember we are working double crochets in the half doubles, and this is the only time you do this. You don't need to work the larger double crochet at cable crossings at any other point in the throw, just when you're crossing the triple cable. Skip the next 3 stitches, and we're going to work another double crochet. Now we're going to work 3 front post trebles, another double crochet in that next stitch, and then 3 more front post trebles. Okay, After doing that, we're going to reach all the way across. It's going to feel like a really long way to reach from here all the way across to that very first column, and we're going to front post treble in this stitch, and this stitch. We're going to work another double crochet in the same space where this first double crochet was worked, and then treble, front post treble here, here, and here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So all the way across to that first column. Okay, it is a long reach, just know that, but if you know where you're going, you can get it done. Oops, let's make sure we keep this in front. There we go. And now it's time for that double crochet. And I would highly recommend that you just add that stitch marker so that you know, there we go, so that you know where to put that other double crochet. And then 3 more front post trebles right here. Of course, you can take this stitch marker out after this. And then we come all the way over here to work the wattle stitch. Again, let's pause. Let's go ahead and take this stitch out because it's already done its job, just to identify where we wanted to put that double crochet. So now you see how this entire cable section works its way out. All right, so let's go ahead, just go ahead and finish out the row in the same fashion. And remember that these are back crosses on the wavy elongated cable. So go ahead and finish out this row, and then I will show you how to work the row that comes afterwards. This is how the cables should look after completing 22 rows. Let's go ahead and pay special attention to this triple cable. I have 1, 2, 3 cables in here, which again is why I'm calling it a triple cable. All right, so now we're going to turn to work row 23, and I'm going to pay a special attention to how we work on the back side of this cable, because this is going to be the trickiest part of row 23. So I'm going to go ahead and chain 2 and work the ribbing over those first 10 stitches and the wattle stitch, and I will work my way and I will show you how to work over the back side of this cable as well once again. So working over the back side of that wavy cable, again this is row 23, we just work 3 back post double crochets, a half double in between that last stitch and the next stitch, so it's right in between those 2 stitches there, and then the second half of that cable that was crossed, we work 3 back post double crochets, and then again I'm going to go ahead and work the wattle stitch, and I'm going to work over the bobble area and another 2 wattle stitches, and then I'll show you how to work over the back side of that triple cable. Okay, so now we've come to the triple cable, and you can see the stitches go zigzag. It's kind of strange. It's all very compact, but what we're going to do is we're just going to work, I'll just work it with you as I go, 3 back post double crochet. We're just working the same as we would with the other crosses. It's just going to feel a little different because of the stitches being so compact. So we work 3 back post double crochets. Okay, and then we have right here that double crochet right here. We're going to work a half double in there. This was the spacer stitch, and then we work 3 more back post double crochets, and this is where it gets a little bit soupy. Okay, so let me pause again. So we've worked 3 back post doubles, a half double, 3 back post double crochets, and then in between these 2 stitches, this is where that huge cable cross was in the center. We add another half double crochet, and then along the other side, and you may need to just kind of stretch this a bit to see. We're going to have 3 more back post doubles, a half double worked into this double crochet, and then 3 more back post double crochets. So let's go ahead and do that. 3 back post double crochets, a half double worked into that double crochet, and then 3 more back post double crochets. Okay, and then we are going to skip these 2 double crochets. They were just kind of stitches to help orient us really on the other side, and we're just going to work the wattle stitch in that next wattle stitch. So let's go ahead and pause, and if we look at this from the other side, it's still in process. So what's going to happen here is we're going to continue to work in pattern stitch when we go to the next row, but we're going to work front post double crochets, half double, front post double crochets, half double, just like we've been working. It's just that it's going to be a little more compact. All right, so let's just continue on with row 23. So I've shown you how to work over these cables, so just go ahead and repeat that across, and if you need to look at this again, just simply back it up about 30 or 40 seconds and you can see what I've done here. So go ahead and complete row 23. This is what you should have after completing 23 rows. I'll give you a good look at this wavy cable, and again the bobble section is just a 2-row repeat over and over, but this is the important part that we're looking at. This is this large triple cable that's crossed. Okay, so we've worked those back posts and double crochets, and you can see it's still kind of a Z here, or an S. And so for this row, let me just explain. We're going to just work in pattern stitch, working front post double crochets over the wavy cables, of course with the half double in between, the bobble as usual, and the wattle stitches, and of course the ribbing. But when you get to this cable, this is not as difficult as it looks. We're again going to just maintain 3 front post doubles, half double in the half double, 3 front post doubles, half double, 3 front post, half double, 3 front post double crochets, and again that's for row 24. And then when you turn to work row 25, we are going to basically do the same thing, except using back post double crochets over both of these cables. Just back post double crochets in the stitch, in the post stitches, and half doubles in the half doubles, and that goes for both the wavy cable and the triple cable for row 25. So go ahead and complete rows 24 and 25. Okay, so now for row 26, we are, from this point, from the beginning of the throw, we have been crossing this cable, the elongated wavy cable, at the same time as the center cable for the triple cable. But that's going to change off and on throughout this project. So it has to do with the multiple of these stitches in crocheting the cables. So for row 26, all you need to know is that we're going to cross the wavy cable again with a front cross. That's the easier working. Work these stitches first and then work these in front so that it crosses on front. Now when we get to the large triple cable, we're not ready to cross this cable yet. We need to do 2 more rows before we can do that. So for this cable, when you come to this, you're going to work just 3 front posts, half double, 3 front post, half double, etc. Okay, so what I want you to do is go ahead and work row 26, again crossing with the front cross on the wavy cables, but just front post double crochets only. Do not cross anything on the large cable. Now then I want you to work row 27, which is with the back side facing, and for this large cable you will only work back post double crochets over this section. When you work over the wavy cable, you'll be working the 3 back post double crochets, a half double in between where the cables cross, and then 3 more back post double crochets, just like you've worked numerous times before. So go ahead and work rows 26 and 27. This is what you should have after completing 27 rows. And just want to take a look at the cables. And I'm going to talk primarily about what we're going to do with these 2 cables now. Okay, so for the elongated wavy cable, we're just going to work front post double crochets over these stitches, half double in the middle, of course. So that's all you're going to have to do with that cable. Everything else is going to be pretty much the same with the bobble. We're just doing that 2 row repeat, and you know what to do with the ribbing and the wattle stitches. Now for the large triple cable here, we are going to cross just the 2 center columns. So I'm going to work up until this point, and I will show you the crossing of this large cable. So let me show you. I just worked this part again, just front post double crochets, half double, front post double crochets over each of those stitches. And now we've come to the large triple cable. We're just going to work 3 front post double crochets on those first 3 stitches. I'm going to work a half double in that half double crochet. And now that we get to the 2 columns in the center, it's time to cross those again. So I'm going to skip 3 stitches, half double in the half double. Working in the next 3 stitches, I'm going to front post treble in each of those 3 stitches. Now working in front of those 4 stitches, I'm going to front post treble in those 3 stitches that we skipped. And now I'm going to work a half double in that next half double. And finally, 3 more front post double crochets. And I'm going to work the wattle stitch just so I can anchor this so that I can show you. So this is how this is going to look. So we're going to again cross just those 2 center columns in that large triple cable. Okay, so we can see how that is going. So go ahead and finish row 28 in the same manner, making sure that you do again front post double crochets, and then we're going to cross just the center cable. After you do that, I want you to work row 29, which is going to have the back side facing. And the main thing that you're going to do there is when you work over these cables, we're going to work back post double crochets, half double back post. We're not crossing anything, of course. When you work across this stitch, we're going to have the large, this is the large cable. We're going to have 3 back post doubles, half double, and then we're going to work 3 back post doubles, a half double where that cable was crossed, 3 back post doubles, half double here, and then 3 more back post doubles, again always skipping this one that is back here. I'm not saying that again with every single time, but we're skipping that. We're going for the center one right here. Okay, so that's what you're going to need to do for row 29. So go ahead and complete rows 28 129. This is how your throw should look after completing 29 rows. So let's go ahead and take a look at this cable. Now for row 30, we are going to cross the elongated wavy cable with a back cross. This is where you work a half double crochet, 3 front post trebles, and then working behind those 4 stitches, we come into that hole and we work front post trebles in these stitches, working behind these 4 stitches. So just wanted to communicate that. Everything else just continues on. For the large triple cable, we are going to work only front post double crochets over these stitches, half double, 3 front post, half double, front post, half double, 3 front post double crochets. So that's what you're going to do for row 30. And for row 31, when you have the back side facing, you're going to excuse me, work 3 back post double crochets over this elongated wavy cable, and then a half double in between where the cables cross, in between the last stitch and the next stitch, and then 3 back post double crochets. And for row 31 of the triple cable, you're just going to work back post double crochets after that row. Okay, so again, row 30, just front post double crochets, and row 31, back post double crochets. Again, on the elongated cable, row 30, we're going to cross the cables with a back cross, and then on row 31, we're going to work 3 back post, half double in between the last stitch and next stitch, and then 3 more back post doubles. So go ahead and work those 2 rows. This is what you should have after completing 31 rows. Now for row 32, you're simply going to work front post double crochets, half double, and front post double crochets over the cable here. And over the large cable, we are going to cross just the 2 columns again with a front cross, just like we did here 3 rows earlier. Okay, so again, just front post double crochets on this cable with the half double, of course, and cross the middle cable here with a front cross. So go ahead and complete row 32. And for row 33, we're going to have the back side facing, and so you're only going to work back post double crochets over the elongated wavy cable, and you're going to also work back post double crochets over all of these. You're going to work a half double crochet in the middle where this cable was crossed from the previous row. So go ahead and work rows 32 and 33. This is what your cable should look like after 33 rows. Let's take a good look at these. Okay, so now for rows 34 and 35, it is time to cross these cables again, and this time we're going to cross them with a front cross, which is just like we've been using exclusively on the large cable. That's where you work the second grouping in front. Okay, so make sure you cross all of the elongated wavy cables with a front cross. Now for the large triple cable, we are only going to be working front post double crochets here, half double, 3 front post, half double, 3 front post, half double, 3 front post. So that's what you're going to be doing for row 34. Now for row 35, you'll have the back side facing. We're simply going to work back post double crochets, and this is after the cable has been crossed. So you're going to have to work a half double in between the last stitch and the next stitch as you work in the center going the other direction for row 35. Okay, for this large cable, you're just going to work back post double crochets for row 35. So again, for row 34, front post double crochets, and for row 35, we work back post double crochets, and of course the half doubles in between, that's all implied Everything else is pretty much going to stay the same. So go ahead and work rows 34 and rows 35. Now, after we complete 35 rows, this is what you should have. And just take a look, special look at what these cables are doing. Now for row 36, we are going to be working front post double crochets over the elongated wavy cable. So 3 front post, half double, 3 front post for those cables. This cable, we're actually going to cross the entire thing again, just like we did back here. So let me just review this with you again. When you get, after you complete this wattle stitch, we're going to skip 3 stitches, double crochet in the half double, skip 3, double crochet in this half double, then front post treble, front post treble, front post treble, and another double crochet in this stitch, and then front post double in each of these 3. And then working all the way from this point, we're going to work in front of all those stitches and work front post treble in these 3, a double crochet in this stitch again. And remember, like I said before, it's a good idea to go ahead and put a stitch marker in this stitch so that you know where that double crochet will go. There will be another double crochet there already, but you're just going to add another one there, front post treble in each of these 3 stitches, and then work the wattle stitch and continue on. Now if you want to look at this entire crossing again, look at the bottom of the screen. I'll put a little time mark where you can watch how I crossed this major treble crossing or triple cable crossing there. Okay, so that's what we're doing on this row. So again, front post double crochets only on these cables, and this is going to be crossing the entire triple cable here. So go ahead and finish row 36. This is what you should have after completing 36 rows. Now for row 37, before we turn, let's take a look. And we're looking at it from the front side. We're going to turn and work from the back side, but I'm going to explain it this way. We're just going to continue. We're going to work a row of back post double crochets, worked, of course, along the back side. And when you get to this section of the large triple cable, I'm going to go ahead and turn this. We're going to work 3 back post here, a half double in that double crochet, 3 more back post double crochets, and then a half double in between that last stitch and next stitch. That's the very center of the large triple cable. Then we're going to work 3 more back post double crochets, half double in the double crochet, 3 back post double crochets, and we're going to skip these 2 stitches and go right into the wattle stitch. And if you're not sure exactly what that all is going to look like, I'll put another time mark across the bottom of the screen so that you can watch that from a previous row. So go ahead and complete row 37. This is what you should have after completing 37 rows. So we have the double cross here, or of the triple cable, and then the double cross here, and we've worked that row along the back side. So now we're working with the front side facing again for row 38. We're going to work in pattern stitch as we've been working. This is time to cross this cable again. So we're going to use a back cross on this one, and so remember that you're going to do the half double here, 3 front post trebles, and then working behind those stitches we'll work these 3 front post trebles. For the large cable, we're just simply going to work front post double crochets, half double, front post double crochets, half double in the half double, and then again 3 more front post, half double, 3 more front post. So that's what you're going to do for row 38. So go ahead and work that row, and then for row 39, we're just going to work back post. Bring it down lower. Back post double crochets, half double back post double crochets over this large cable, and over the elongated cable, we're just going to work the row where you work 3 back post doubles, a half double in between the last stitch and next stitch, and then 3 more back post double crochets. The rest of the motifs are worked just continually the way you've been working them. This is what you should have after 39 rows. I just really love the way this cable is unfolding here. Now I'm going to give you a large assignment because you know how to do all of the cables. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you continue this in pattern stitch, and I'll put the number of rows right across the bottom here of the completed throw in the size that I have made. But if you need additional stitch support, particularly for the large central triple cable, I'm going to have you look at the bottom of the screen again. You can repeat rows 12 through 29. That's a 28 row repeat from about this point in the throw all the way up until the last row that we just worked with row 39. So that's a 28 row repeat. Of course, you may not have to repeat that at the very end, because at the very end we're going to have it match what we did here at the very beginning of the throw. And so I did have those stitch numbers there, the row numbers there for you, so that you can use that as a guide. Now that said, of course, these rows with the wattle stitches and the bobble stitches will all be the same in those repeat rows. But please hear me on this, because I know someone's going to say this doesn't match and whatnot. The wavy cable is going to be different in these repeats. It may match on some repeats, it may not on others, and it has to do with the multiples and the way this was started. This is a multiple of 4. This is crocheted in groupings of 28, so sometimes it may match. So what I need you to do is just to be very careful on the visuals. Every 4 rows on this elongated wavy cable, you will cross the cables. You'll either do a front cross or a back cross, and if you want specific instructions as to the row by row play out, I do have a written pattern I do encourage you to purchase from my you can check out my website to see where that is located. It's in a couple places actually, so you can check that out, and I will have the exact, whether you work a front cross or a back cross, and which rows that is on. And it also would be good practice if you're not used to reading crochet patterns. It's a good habit to get into so that you're not as dependent really on the videos. So go ahead and work this, the specified number of rows, as I said earlier, and I will show you how to transition back to the ribbing so that the ending of the throw matches the beginning. So I'm going to put a picture of where I am on this throw right here so that you can see the repeats very clearly. So if you look at the triple cable, you should have a total, including the very first one that looks very similar to this at the very beginning. You should have a total of 10 of these. And you can look at the bottom of the screen and I'll show you how many repeats and the row numbers and whatnot. Okay, so now let me show you where we are. We had just completed the row that goes across. We need to do one more row that comes back, and then we would again cross the large triple cable, but we're not going to cross the triple cable on this time. This is what we're going to do. Okay, we have the front side facing, so now we're going to turn to have the back side facing us, and we're ready to return to the ribbed section worked all the way across. But before we do that, we need to work a row that's going to convert all of the stitches to double crochets, or in this case back post doubles. Okay, so now we are ready to transition to the ribbing that we started with at the very beginning of this project. Now, in order to do that, I'm going to just talk you through what we're going to do. I'm going to have the front side facing, even though when you're working, you're going to have the back side facing you. So hopefully that won't be too confusing. So over the ribbing here, we're just going to continue in pattern stitch the way we've been doing all along. Really the main difference here is when you get to the wattle stitch. Let me turn so you see the back side facing. You're going to skip the double crochet, 2 double crochets into that chain 1 space, and 1 double crochet into that single crochet of the wattle stitch. So for every wattle stitch, you're going to have 3 double crochets in the row. So we're converting that. When you get to the cables, we're just going to continue with 3 back posts, half double in between where those cables cross, and then 3 more back posts. Again, 3 stitches. Skip the double crochet, 2 double crochets in the chain 1, and then 1 double crochet in that single crochet. And this, we just continue what we've been doing in pattern stitch when the back side is facing. And again, you're going to convert those wattle stitches. You're going to have 3 double crochets, 3 double crochets, 2 in the chain 1 spaces, and 1 in the single crochet, 2, and then 1. When you get to the large cable, again, just maintain what you normally would do on this with this configuration. Just back post double crochets, half doubles into half doubles, etc. on that section. So go ahead and work that all the way across. Now the last 6 rows are going to be the same as rows 2 through 7 at the very beginning. We're just going to work the ribbing, again, front post, back post, all the way. And when we get to these other stitches, we're going to just continue with the, okay, so this will be the back post, front post, back post, front post, front, back post, front post, etc., alternating. And the half double crochets, you can treat those the same way as you do the double crochets. So when you're doing the front post or the back post, do not exclude these, because if you do, your stitch count is going to suffer at the end, and it needs to be the same so that the ribbing matches up on the other side. Okay, so if you follow the directions, it will match up. So go ahead and work the last 6 rows, and then after that, fasten off, and then you will be completely done with this throw. Well, I hope you enjoyed making my wild Irish throw with me today. If you did, I would love to hear from you. Please feel free to contact me either in the comments below or my email, which is listed in the video description. God bless. Bye-bye.